Alexis Mungin attended her beloved cousin's Farrah's memorial service in the fall of 2018. That proved to be a pivotal moment for her as she was divinely instructed to use her gifts for a noble cause. Since that time, Farrah's backyard was established to help out in academic environments, healthcare environments, and now in the kitchen. I talk one-on-one with Chef Alexis for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Alexis Mungin, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Yes, thank you so much.
I appreciate it greatly. Needless to say, you are the founder and owner of Farrah's Backyard Catering LLC. And of course, your particular company offers professional personal chef services, meal plans, catering, and party planning services for clients across the Lowcountry. And with your particular menu, of course, there's something for everyone. So let me ask you, Miss Alexis, what foods are you helping to bring families back to with the table in regards to your company?
Right, so I bring memorable and Southern favorites. So all of the things that you would think about eating at your grandmother's house in the South, and plus more. So I have expanded upon a couple of different options like halal options, and I remember I went to my first Seder not too long ago. So I'm big on just not just Southern families and Black families, but all families. So that is what I pride myself in.
Well, you bring up a great point because obviously, as I just mentioned, you provide personal chef services, meal plans and caterings, and party planning services. And you just told me that you obviously expanding your services. So what got you to expanding your services now?
Okay, so I'll put it like this. I want to start from my beginning. So I started it, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be another question about who's Farrah. But I'll just fast forward a little bit when I started my catering business in March of 2019. So I named it Farrah's Backyard Catering, and my idea was solely I was in the classroom teaching. So I solely just wanted just to bring families together in their backyards, make just a couple of extra bucks. You know, if a mom wanted to have a birthday party or a grandmother just wanted to bring her grandchildren together and she didn't want the hassle of it, that solely was it. That was all I wanted to do, because I had my own children and everything else. And so that's how I got into it. And so one of my friends and event colleagues, her name is Edelina Butler. She has a great business and it's called Unforgettable Events. And she asked me, I met her at a social gathering. I think it was during COVID, post-COVID something. And she said, "Hey, we need you." And I was like, "We need who for what?" Okay. She was like, "We need caterers. We need more caterers." And I was like, okay. I don't think I can help you with that because you do weddings and I don't do weddings.
Right.
I've seen bridezillas. I don't do that.
Oh.
So that is what kind of took me from backyard parties. And I started out doing luxe backyard parties. They weren't just like simple ones. It was like all of a sudden it was like, whoa, these people trust me to do this. And so it went from really kind of lavish backyard parties. And then I started doing weddings. And then from there, I met, attendants at the wedding. They said, "Hey, do you do corporate events?" And I'm like, "Well, what does that mean?" So then I just kind of, expanded from there. So it's just like one backyard to weddings and then corporate.
Oh my God. And I want to talk to you about that, Chef, in just a second. But you talked about obviously starting your business in 2019. What is the biggest difference about your business from 2019 to right now?
Ooh, that's a good question. A lot has changed. Oh my goodness. It's been a roller coaster. So when I started out at the schoolhouse kitchen off of Magnolia. And so I did not start really in my kitchen. I was I rented space and I said, I'm going to do this thing right because DHEC is not going to shut me down, right? And so I started there. And then I transitioned to Pro Eats Kitchen, and that's where I learned a lot about meal preps with Chef Adrian Grant. And he said, you don't need to go to school, Alexis. You can go to school here. I'll teach you what I know. So I learned a lot from him, grew from there to the point where I remember I took up his entire walk-in and I felt awful. And I was like, oh my gosh, we have way too much food and there's nowhere to move. And so I ended up moving to the Ghost Kitchen,
Yes.
which is off of Dorchester Road. And here's the thing about the vision and where God puts you, right? Prior to me moving from off of 61 in the Ghost Kitchen, I remember during COVID, I was literally paying a lease for a business that I could not legally operate because everything was shut down. So I was not that person to say, hey, I'm not making any money and nor will I pay money. I agreed to a lease and that's what I was going to do. And so I remember meeting with a local club owner and I said, hey, I have this great idea. I said, I really want to do late night dining. It's just an idea, but it's not leaving me. What do you think? So he walked me from his club, which is on a corner. He walked me past the Ghost Kitchen, which was my next step, and I had no idea where I was going to be. I didn't even know what the Ghost Kitchen was.
Right.
He walked me past there, kept walking me to this corner lot that is adjacent to my kitchen now. And that is where he said, this is kind of where I'm seeing another step in my business. And I just want to share that with you. I had no idea that is where I was going to end up. In the lot in the unit adjacent to his property. And God really showed me, he walked me every step that I was going to take. So location wise, that is the track that I went. As far as structurally wise, I went from just being a person just trying to figure it out, just being an educator and a person in healthcare who was accustomed to creating lesson plans, working with healthcare goals and just transforming that into event goals. And that is career-wise how I took the steps. So in every aspect that I've been through since my starting out in Wendy's, that was my first job in food and bev. So every avenue, I've always been serving, always been caring for people. And that's how I got here.
Wow. And obviously, you mentioned that Ghost Kitchen's right there, Kent Avenue and Dorchester Road, right across from the old Grey House.
I'm right there. Yep.
I pass it on my way back to my house every night.
Well, right.
Yes, ma'am. Exactly right. I know God obviously walked you through your next steps as far as your business. Mm-hmm. So what plans were you creating throughout this entire process?
A survival plan. Literally a survival plan. And honestly, it was just, I said, I really didn't plan for this. Like, I honestly was like, when I entered, I just wanted to make just a few families get together every month. And so, but once I realized it was truly a calling and where he had already prepared me to go, I just continued on. And I'm really, this entrepreneurial journey has been truly just me walking by faith. And I remember during COVID, post-COVID, the year after, a couple of years after that, like literally struggling sometimes and saying, God, is this something you want me to do? Because this is difficult. I'm like getting paid and then next moment I don't have any money. Like, what's happening? And so what ended up happening, I remember wanting to shut down, dissolve my business 2 or 3 times. And every time I made that attempt, I had increase that came either through my phone or through an online inquiry, or through a phone call in the middle of the night. So that is when I said, you know what? That is the plan. The plan is to keep going, don't stop, and to trust. Now, I have taken courses. I am constantly on a, listening to a vlog, or something of that to kind of keep me motivated. But that literally is the plan. Yes, I have a vision, but the true plan is just to trust him, pay attention to what's going on around me, and to respond to that.
What is something that's part of your vision that's also part of your plan?
Something that's part of my vision, part of my plan. Well, one of my visions, it's always been, I've always been someone to care for people. And I love the youth. I love, um, I grew up, I didn't have a lot. So, one of my goals was to pay it forward. If I got out, my goal was, if I got out, I got to reach back. Okay. So where I've landed right now is that I'm the next unit over is a great after school program. And so one of my goals was always to have some type of initiative where I take care of people from birth to death. And I know that sounds crazy and absolutely insane, but I started out, I taught early childhood. So, and I did healthcare. So some of, I've helped, moms, new moms. And then a couple of years into business, I actually became a caterer for a great funeral home. So literally from birth to death. And then in between this time frame, between me starting the business and I've also worked with just different populations of people and seeing the need, in different socioeconomic classes. So that is my goal, to create wraparound services for people, all people, and if I can feed them, that's all the better. So, so that is where I am, where my social, where the goals and the vision, and it all kind of comes together.
Right.
And I just feel like he has prepared me through every detour that I've taken. Sometime at that point, it might have just been just a job. To me, it might have just been a job or a position, but I didn't realize he was training me for this moment.
Yes.
So in those moments when I felt lost and confused, like, oh my gosh, I'm too educated for this, or, oh my goodness, this is not what I signed up for. It truly was. It was what he signed me up for. Right. I may have not, but he had me signed up.
There you go. Exactly right.
Yep.
And Chef, mm-hmm. I can remember back in the 90s that a lot of us used to gather around, have the crab cracks and the cookouts, but you don't see that anymore. What's been lost and what's confusing about not having cookouts and having family gatherings in general right now?
Right. So it's so funny you brought this up, because I thought about this not too long ago, probably no, it wasn't even last week. It was like a couple of days ago. And so here's when I moved. My roots are not in Charleston. My roots are actually in Kingstree. My mom is from Kingstree in Williamsburg County. My dad is from Lake City, which is in Florence County.
Right.
And so, of course, they had me. I'm the oldest. But my mom moved my brother and I to Charleston in 96. And I was accustomed to, that was our way of life, like just seeing families out in the yard cooking around the grill. We were big on grills. I was not truly the closest we got to seafood, and to my recollection, was seriously just like a fish fry. Like that was like, ooh, we having a fish fry. That's a big deal, you know? And so um when I got to Charleston and I moved, I remember having crabs for the first time in Ravenel, South Carolina. And I remember in a crab pot, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's alive and it's going in the pot. What's happening? Ooh, what's going to happen now? And I remember it going from blue to red, and I thought that was the most miraculous thing I had ever seen in my life. And I fell in love with blue crabs in about 97. I would say that's when I was like, ooh, this is good. So every time I go to this family's house, I can eat this on a Saturday. That was their Saturday thing. And I remember trying red rice the same time. And that was a family friend that exposed us to it. But I would say what has changed is time. It is time. It is how people spend their time now. And unfortunately, due to the economic changes, it takes a lot more for families to come together. So it's a couple of things that happen. If they have the time, then they don't have the money.
Right.
If they don't have the time, they have the money. So that is where I kind of help things merge together. Right. But I think that comes a lot with it. And then just looking at how people grow, you know, they move on, move away from home, and then they come back. And unfortunately, sometimes people don't return until there's a death or something tragic in their family, or if they're using, you know, their home as a form of retirement after they come. So then they're tired. They don't want to have to do all of that. So, you know, it's a couple of different factors that contribute to that, but it's definitely something that needs to happen more often.
And when it comes to those southern foods that you just mentioned, and including the seafood, what exactly are your clients' wants and needs right now when it comes to food?
Ooh, so it's a couple. So it's a couple of different things. I get clients that are like, you know what, I want everything. Don't just cook it like how you cook it. I'm not picky. I just want it to taste good. Okay. And then I have clients that are, oh my gosh, we have all of these million allergies. Are you even able to accommodate us? So I kind of get two extremes. Either it's just cook it however you want it, or please make sure everything is gluten-free, nut-free, seafood-free. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I said, at this point, are we eating air today? So that's kind of like what the extremes are. But most of them come and they want, you know, just authentic soul and Southern comfort food. They just want to feel good after they eat, full, and that's it.
Yeah. Oh, it just reminds me that just Sunday we had the baked chicken and okra and rice, and that was so good to eat.
Yeah.
Because years ago, growing up here on the east side of Charleston, I hated eating okra and cabbage and stewed chicken. They cooked it so much, I just didn't like it. Right. But now some of these foods I actually like.
Right, you develop an appreciation for it. I'm the same way. It's a lot of things that I did not eat as a child that I have grown appreciation for it now as an adult, and now that I have control over the texture or the flavoring of it, you know, I've grown to love it. You know, so I definitely have that appreciation. And, you know, while we're on this topic, you know, one thing I have explored is that good soul food is now considered, and I hate to say it like this, but I will, but it's a delicacy. And because people seek it.
Yes, they do.
When they come in town, they ask for it. And I did not know until I joined some of these groups that people are looking for this food and they want it. They don't want and I mean this with all, you know, great intentions, but I've seen so many um, chefs of color that have looked to that have tried to explore different avenues of cooking. They grew up cooking soul food, but then they and there's nothing wrong with expanding your skill set. I'm not saying that at all. But they've gone into Italian or French or some other sort, and that's not when tourists come. That's not what they're looking for.
Right.
They want belly busting, car blowing. They want everything. They want the grease. They want the butter. That is what they're seeking, and so I'm happy to be able to provide that for them.
Oh, yes. And I was just doing a food delivery the other
Yeah.
day, and somebody from one of the hotels over there at the Renaissance, they wanted East Side soul food, so I had to deliver that food to them. And
Mhm.
there was a big order of fish, grits and all that other stuff that they have
Yeah.
there. But how do you expand your skill set without actually, jeopardizing your craft?
Whew. So that's a good one. Um, so one of the things is that I've sought mentorship. And that is another thing that has come to me divine. It came at a very trying, difficult time of probably the most difficult time of 2024. And I met Brett McGee.
Oh, yes.
And so he said, Alexis, you are talented. You take ownership. You have a skill set that you don't see very often. People who have done it for years, decades even, don't have what you have. And he said, don't change what you do. He said, just perfect it. So, with that being said, some of the things that he touched upon, he said, tell your story. So that's why I was so honored to be a part of that. He said, that's one of the things. He said, part of being a chef, he said, yeah, the food. He said, but the experience. He said, it's the storytelling that comes along with the food. He said, learn how to tell your story. And in the term of learn, because it does not come natural, because for us, especially in the Black community and in hospitality, we have been trained to stay stoic, do your job, and walk away. Don't talk too much. Don't ask too many questions. And we're learning that it's okay for us to have a place. People want to learn more, okay? And so that is what I'm learning. I'm learning how to tell my story. I'm learning how to share. I'm learning that there's value in what I'm doing, and I don't have to change everything. And no, everything doesn't have to go on the same plate. It is completely fine to put okra soup and a rice in a separate bowl, and it's still going to taste good, even if it's not on the same plates as your macaroni cheese and your baked chicken, right? So those are ways that I'm learning how to plate, so that not only does it taste good, but it looks good. And so that is how I'm staying true to what I'm doing, but I'm just taking it up a notch by storytelling and presentation.
There you go. What is the art of cooking?
For me,
Yes, ma'am.
it is probably pulling everything you've got, and no matter what's happening in the world, and it coming out absolutely amazing and appreciated by whoever. And that is truly the art. You just pull it together and you use your skill sets, and it's appreciated.
Absolutely. You talked earlier, obviously, about presentation. So, what innovative twists have you actually put on foods that you've been able to present to your clients?
Right. Oh my gosh. I remember I've scaled it back a notch,
Uh-huh.
but everything had to have flowers.
Yes.
It got to the point where that was my signature. If that table didn't have greenery, it was not together, in my opinion. And that came from my maternal grandmother. I grew up, I spent a lot of summers on the farm with her, and she was one for the flowers and everything. And flowers were, from the front porch to the back porch. And that was how I was connecting with her. Like, see, Grandma, I told you I learned something. I wasn't so hard headed. And that was one of my ways of just paying homage back to her and just saying, hey, I've learned something. And so, but that would be how that's my twist that I've put on a lot of things. It's just got to be bright and beautiful. And even if you don't want to touch it, you can at least say it is pretty.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, you come from Williamsburg County, which is right next door to Georgetown County. Love Georgetown, by the way.
Yeah.
And of course, Rodney Scott's from there. I love barbecue now that I've been to Nashville 3 times. What is something Southern?
I love the barbecue.
Yeah, same here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the pulled pork and all that. Yeah, it's just amazing. But what is? Oh yeah, I bet it is. But what is that one Southern food that you want to put an innovative twist on next?
So the one, it's funny that you mentioned that. So yes, barbecue. I love doing it. I remember that was a big thing for us. How Charleston was about the crab bowls and the crab pots, and
Right.
Where we were, it was about those pig roasts, like hog roast. That's what they would call it. And then I remember hearing someone's called a pig picking, and I was like, what is that? But I had no idea everything that had transpired between, the death of the pig to it coming in an aluminum pan in the house. I saw a little bit, but not a whole lot, because that was more of the men territory. Okay. So for me, it's me just coming out and just expanding on that barbecue and tying into what I would hear about the art form of the bark. Like, I remember learning more about that as I entered the culinary world, but it wasn't talked about too much where we were from, because it was more so about the flavoring of the meat, not necessarily about the bark. And I'm like, what's the big deal about bark? Like, but now I get it, so one of my things is making barbecue absolutely amazing, gorgeous, because it can look really good, and make sure you have that beautiful pink ring and that contrast. So that is what I'm hoping to do, add more into beautifying the barbecue world and diversifying it, so that it's a more welcoming place for women.
Speaking of which, Miss Alexis,
Mm-hmm.
who are you in the kitchen?
That crazy lady. All over the place. In the kitchen, I am what I call an unsung maven. I am all over the place. That is how I work. I am singing, dancing, cooking, chopping, back to singing. It is an entire theatrical performance. So there's never really a dull moment unless I'm in a time crunch. Now, if I'm in a time crunch, I've got to conserve every ounce of energy I can to get out the door and be on time. But if it's a prep day and we're all on time and schedule, that is who I am in the kitchen. I am, yeah. I think I like to think that I'm a pleasure to be around. Um, and just bringing laughter to the kitchen.
Yes.
Yeah.
And speaking of the kitchen, Miss Alexis,
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that women are not respected when it comes to cooking and being in the kitchen?
I don't want to say we aren't respected. Um, but again, here's what I will say. Okay, the only place that I have worked in food and beverage has been Wendy's, and that was in 2005 to 2007. So that, and even though I try to downplay it, I remember speaking with one of my DHEC persons, and she said, don't downplay it. She said, we're hard on y'all in fast food, right? She said, if anything, food safety. I said, okay, you're right. I do know food safety. And when Wendy started salads, I took a lot of pride in that. So I was serious about that. So I cannot honestly speak too much upon what happens in your traditional restaurant setting, or a hotel kitchen. I can't speak on that because I have not personally experienced that. But I do know it's there, just like any other occupation. You have to prove that and I will say that when you have I can speak on the fact that being a mom, um, people tend to play on the fact, and men and women, they can play on the fact that you are maternal and that you're caring, you're kind, and you should be forgiving, and all of those things that you would think about a mom being. And but that does not go hand in hand with necessarily the business operation. So I say all of that to say that women, we have a lot of challenges when it comes to showing, I would say, really showing our leadership, because we have a fine line where we're either accused of being too much and told other things, but I'm trying to get my thoughts together. Let me get my thoughts together. Um, yeah, we just have to we just have to fight for our spot, because we're given a lot of excuses, right? But the end result still has to be the same, whether we're male or female. So we we still have those challenges. I can speak on that. I can speak honestly on the challenges that come with us having that ground of, yes, we have to be caring, but we still have to get the job done, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Um, but I have heard um, through other women chefs about, different tasks being given to men, or, or they might have had to take the background, but they did most of the work, or, those things. I've heard that. I have not experienced that because of my entry into food and beverage.
And tell me, because I already know, but I want the audience to know this too. What
Yeah,
keeps you fighting every day as a chef, as a mom, as a wife?
what keeps me fighting? Um, because if not me, then who? I say that every day of my life. If not me, then who? Um, and the reason being is because being that my journey into this world is so untraditional. Truly, it is. It's not. It blows people's minds. It still surprises me. Um, but I would say, if not me, then who? And when I thought about those several times, I thought about just giving up because it's a lot of long hours, unpredictable staffing issues, financial hurdles. It's just, I mean, the mountain is just huge, and it just seems like it never stops, right? Um, but I've shown people that it's possible. And if I stop now, then what does that show? And I think me entering having a brick and mortar space in less than a decade, less than 5 years, it's incredible. It is truly incredible. But I want people to understand that um, if you're aligned, I will say alignment is also what keeps me going, right? In prayer, and I asked him to keep me aligned with the people who will keep me on task and on target. Because if it was up to me, I would be over here and over there, because that is how I am naturally. I am just all, so I have to keep certain structures in place. But I even had one of my younger cousins, and she said, "I look up to you." And I was like, wow, she does? Wow, okay. I really can't stop now, because what if and let me backtrack. I had a conversation with my brother, and he's in Colombia. He's right underneath me. And he said, "Alexis, we all have callings and we all have missions on this earth. And if you fail to do what you were put on this earth to do, that could affect, it's not even a matter of could, it will affect other people who were attached to you and were planning, and God had planned to join you." So when I make moves, I don't necessarily do it just for me. I think about not only my children and my husband, but I think about my younger cousin who might need to come work with me to develop a skill set. Or I think about those children in that not at that nonprofit after school program right next door to me that I just visited and just greeted them and said, "Hey y'all, I'll see y'all on spring break."
Right.
I think about them as well. Because if it weren't okay, all right, if it wasn't, if it wasn't for people who poured into me, who didn't give up, right, I wouldn't be here. So that is what's keeping me going. Just knowing that I have a purpose, and I have a calling, and I have an anointing to be here. And if I stop, that could stop someone else from achieving what they're supposed to do.
And in 20 seconds, Chef Alexis,
Yeah.
what food describes you in one word?
Honestly, probably. Oof, that's a good one. I didn't even think you were going to ask me that. Oh my goodness. I would probably say, probably one of my favorite dishes in the world, which is okra soup. And I like okra soup because of the amount of patience and time that it takes. And I would like to think that I have a lot of patience. I would like to think that I am warm and I bring comfort. And so I would say okra soup would probably be mine.
Wow. Chef Alexis Mungin, thank you for your time here on Quintin's Close-Ups.
Yep, my pleasure.
Thank you.